My name is Natalia Brickner and I'm the CEO and founder of Accion Systems. So my co-founder and I met in the Space Propulsion Lab here at MIT, and we were doing our graduate work on a new type of ion source, and the ion source happened to be really great at propelling small satellites around in space. And had we been working on this 10 or 15 years ago, no one would have cared, but it just so happened that in the past decade, the industry was trending towards smaller and smaller satellites that were lacking any sort of efficient satellite propulsion technology. So we were being beaten over the head essentially by interest from industry and decided to spin Accion out. And we actually formed the company while we were still students, and so there was a bit of overlap. Ion engines have been around since the 50s and 60s actually, but Accion has kind of a new twist on ion propulsion. And fundamentally, ion propulsion, like any sort of rocket propulsion, works by expelling some sort of matter out the back of a spacecraft, and that propels the spacecraft forward. So most people think of the big rockets that Elon Musk makes at SpaceX, and that's a type of chemical propulsion. So there's a combustion of hot gases inside a chamber, and then those are forced out the back of a nozzle, and that pushes the rocket in the opposite direction. Our engine is a type of electric propulsion, which rather than chemical energy relies on electrical energy. So we accelerate some matter, it happens to be ions, to high speeds and push those out the back of the spacecraft. If you picture an astronaut riding on the back of a satellite throwing tennis balls off the back of it, each time he or she throws a tennis ball off the back, it pushes the satellite in the opposite direction. So that's effectively what we do with ions. The whole world today actually relies on space a lot more than most people realize. It's very prevalent. So everything from direct TV to Sirius radio to GPS, and then even Monsanto uses satellites in the military. So anyone, essentially any industry or application in some way kind of touches the space industry or satellites. And so our technology is really geared at these smaller satellites that are starting to come online, thanks in large part to Moore's Law, which is making it possible to build very small, capable satellites. So anyone interested in launching one of these satellites would especially benefit from Accion's technology. And these smaller satellites, they're having the effect of making space more accessible and affordable to new industries. So previously only whole countries or governments could afford to launch satellites, but now that they're becoming smaller and smaller, they're cheaper to manufacture and launch, and new industries are starting to use them. Even high school students are building and launching satellites. So some of the new industries starting to use satellites in space more and more than in the past are institutions like big financial institutions like banks. They're using satellite imagery to predict futures prices, for instance. And then there are satellite constellations going into orbit for doing things like monitoring ships and tracking other assets as they move across the world. Some of the other applications that Accion finds very exciting are things like there's a mobile breast cancer clinic that used to wait 90 days before it would take the data and upload it at a doctor's office. And they recently signed with some sort of satellite services provider, and now they upload the data in real time, and for some patients that makes all the difference.